but we're as good as we're going to get. Hello, everybody. This is Hedgie. Hey. And this is Pink Pig. Hey. And I am sitting here in my cooking space on a very suddenly cold Wednesday evening. And there was supposed to be a slight chance of a trace of snow. It is currently snowing outside, and it has been for what, like the last hour or so? Something like that? A little more than that? It was snowing when you came home from the picking up the new tablecloth because the dog
16
ate the
months,
last one
where's my
real quickly
food?
before stream, so we had to go splurge and spend that $4 to get a new one. Anyway, I am Hedgepig, calling myself Cooking with Hedgepig because I am a home cook and I believe they're calling this a social media chef now. 45 years of cooking, and I was trained by my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, some recipes from my mother, and I basically trained myself with uh, PBS cooking shows when I was a kid, and every recipe book I could get my hands on from church groups and community groups, people's handwritten recipes that they were actually selling at garage sales. And all of this was trying to recover the family recipes that my family lost when my great aunt, who did all of our holiday cooking for, both sides of the family, had huge get-togethers on every holiday and every special occasion, and she would have easily 20 people that she was cooking for, and she made everything from scratch, and it was all just wonderful, and she never wrote down a recipe as far as we could tell because she died without passing them on, and that was actually a great loss. So I started trying to recover them and searching heirloom recipes and heritage recipes. And once they had the internet up, I was much more successful at it. But that is how I started writing a cookbook. And it started out as just a family cookbook so that everybody in the family would have these recipes. And if somebody died, namely me, suddenly and without warning, or some of the people who are really good cooks in our family died suddenly because one of them was a police officer, and that was a very city police officer, and that was a very risky line of work. And I started writing this cookbook, and I have been writing it for about 30 years. And it's almost done. It's in editing, and I called it Cooking with Hedgepigs because my nickname is Hedgepig. And let's see. I know that right now we have Tom with us who's spoken up, and I'm assuming his wife is watching as well. And I am going to plunge into what I'm planning on cooking tonight. And like I said, I wanted salad dressing to go on my salads, and I wasn't up to trying to deal with the issues I have with garlic and intolerances, my problems with that, and I'm allergic to garlic, very, very allergic to garlic. So I really didn't want to deal with that, and that is what led me into buttermilk dressing, which is kind of a precursor to ranch, except the definition of ranch is a garlicky buttermilk dressing. So that explains why it has garlic in it. This is a really simple recipe, really, really easy to make. And you start with, if you want to make the amount I am making, a half a cup of mayonnaise. And most dressings like ranch or blue cheese or creamy dressings like that, they will have um, uh, mayonnaise in them. And I'm sorry, tonight I cannot make this recipes that I'm making tonight vegan. I don't know of any vegan version of buttermilk, so that won't work. And hey Katie, Kate. Kate. Sorry. I heard him say what I thought was Katie, and my niece's name is Katie. So, hi, Kate. Um, I see you have stolen the device from Tom to watch. So this is a half a cup of mayonnaise. And to that, I will be adding, we're done with the mayonnaise now. To that, I will be adding the top of the mayonnaise into it. That's awesome. Let me little bit of a Butterfingers tonight. So that was fun. My next trick is going to be to throw the buttermilk all over the floor. That's just a guess, of course. I could do something completely differently wild. Okay, so I am going to be adding to that a cup of sour cream. And this is, it's basically full fat sour cream. You can use fat free or low fat if you want to. That's up to you. And this is a 16-ounce container, so I'm going to use half of it. These measurements are not going to be horrendously precise, but it doesn't really matter. And I like to keep that little lip over the top of the sour cream when I put it back, so it's a little extra fidgety. So I've got that. And the recipes will be up after stream, as will pictures. To this, I am going to now add buttermilk. And if you want to feel like a giant, isn't this the best way to feel like a giant? Look, it's a whole gallon. My hand is so huge. Actually, that's Andrew's joke, but still, it's funny. And you are not the funny one. I am funny too. To this, I'm going to add a cup of buttermilk. Hey, Packerbacker, how are you doing tonight? I am making buttermilk dressing to start. And then from that, I am going to go into a creamy chicken casserole. And another low-cost, high-yield recipe. My last one, by the way, my beef noodle casserole, cost $11 to make. I was estimating 10 to 12 servings.
So
it made 12.
sauce.
So that was a total cost for a half hour's cooking of 92 cents a serving. That's pretty economical. Okay, so I am done with that now too. And to this, you take, and I'm going to do a preliminary whisk on it before I add the seasonings in. Hey, Avatar fan. How are you? Thank you for the follow. How are you doing tonight? I'm going to give this a little bit of a whisk before I put the herbs in it. And this is an herbed buttermilk dressing. Not all of them have this much herbs in it, but I really like the combination of herbs that I put in mine, of course. And it is quite herby. So, and this is a dressing that it thickens up as it sits in the refrigerator. It will get to an almost dip consistency. And if you like it that thick or you're going to use it as a dip, that's great. And it does work very well as a dip. It works really well for putting on taco salads. It works well on regular salads. You could put it on chips for a dip. And as you can see, this came together pretty smoothly, pretty quickly. If you don't like it as thick as it is, just add another ounce or so of that at a time until you're happy with it. Now, normally you don't add lemon juice to dairy products without having them curdle. This is buttermilk and sour cream. The buttermilk is kind of curdly resistant, and the sour cream already is curdled. It's sour. So this requires 2 teaspoons of lemon juice. So this is a nice, tangy, creamy, herby buttermilk dressing. It tastes quite a bit like ranch if you like ranch. But you know exactly what's in this one. I know, for instance, this does not have any garlic in it. So that's a benefit to me. And yeah, I do a variety of really stupid things. So this calls for a scant teaspoon of salt to it. Oh, thanks. This is going to have a teaspoon of sodium in it, salt in it. This is rock salt, actually, sea salt. And that is a little less than a teaspoon because I don't like my food very salty. My mother, I had to cook for her for a year when she was under doctor's orders to have an almost no salt diet, so got out of the habit of putting sodium in things, and that kind of made it so I really got used to not having salt. So this is pepper, and I'm going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper to it. A little bit less because my husband doesn't like pepper, and you never know, he may actually go crazy and have a salad. And I am going to add about a 1/4 teaspoon of ground rosemary. And this is dried rosemary, and it's in a salt or pepper grinder. It's actually just a spice grinder. It has a ceramic blade that you can adjust for how big you want the grind to be. I prefer my rosemary to be ground because I don't like big sticks of rosemary in the things I'm cooking. Even if it's fresh, I will use a mortar and pestle to grind that. And if you grind your spices, even the dried one, freshly when you use it, it releases the oils that are in it. So you have a better flavor from it than if you didn't. So that's about a 1/4 teaspoon of rosemary. And then I'm going to put in about a teaspoon of sage because I really like sage. And if you don't like sage as much as I do, you feel free to use less. A regular buttermilk recipe without all the herbs added to it has salt, pepper, and parsley, and that's pretty much it. So speaking of parsley, I am now going to add a tablespoon of parsley because I like the herbaceous flavor of parsley. It's a nice clean flavor. It is very high in iron. So if you need more iron in your diet, parsley is a good way to do it. And now I will take and mix all of this up. We've got a raid? Ah, dragon named Fox, welcome in. Let's get a... Yeah, you did a shout out for Fox. How are you doing, Fox? Thank you so much for the raid. Welcome in, raiders. For those who don't know, I am a... oh, hey, Belle. How are you doing? I am a home chef and a social media chef, I guess they're calling it now. And I've got 45 years of cooking experience behind me, making my own and my family's recipes. And I have just finished mixing up a homemade buttermilk dressing, which has half a cup of mayonnaise, a cup of sour cream, a cup of buttermilk, a teaspoon of salt, a quarter teaspoon of pepper, a quarter teaspoon of fresh ground rosemary. It's freshly ground, but it's actually dry rosemary. And it has got a teaspoon of sage in it and a tablespoon of parsley. It's also got 2 teaspoons of lemon juice. So this is a nice tangy, creamy dressing. And I am going to take my spoon and wipe the mayonnaise off of it, or at least most of it off. And then I am going to taste this for seasoning. That's pretty good. Even at this point, I can taste the sage in it, I can taste the rosemary, I can taste the parsley. It is very creamy and smooth. And I'm going to put this into a bottle that will go into the refrigerator. And this will chill. I recommend you make this at least an hour before you're going to use it, because the herbs will work their way through it, and they will intensify the longer it sits. Now, this particular dressing, being as it has no preservatives in it, is going to last in your refrigerator between 4 and 6 days. Oh, thank you so much for the bits. Flightless Rain, welcome in too. And I believe Flightless Rain is a TLD streamer as well. Could you give her a shout out as well, honey? And I am going to pour it into a nice colander so it doesn't get poured all over everything else. And wait for it to go down. And I could have made enough so that it would fill this entire thing, and it holds 32 ounces. But because this only lasts in the refrigerator for, about 6 days at the longest, I'm gonna not make that much. I can always, as you can see, this did not take long to do. Just whip up more when I need it. So, and this dressing can be used in any dressing needs that you have, whether it be dip. It can be on salads, or you can use it for the ever popular, chicken bacon ranch, anything that they're doing these days. And this will taste fabulous. And quite frankly, I believe it tastes better than Hidden Valley Ranch. So that's just me. Now, if you want, if you want to make this a full-on ranch dressing, in that case, you would take and put in 2 cloves of fresh garlic that you have crushed or minced finely. Okay, and now I'm going to put the lid back on it, And this is going to go into the refrigerator until I put the salad together, which is going to be a very simple salad to accompany dinner tonight. And this is almost 24 ounces of dressing. So, yeah, it is a bold statement, but it's pretty accurate. I mean, homemade, if you have a good recipe, usually is better than store-bought. So, let's see if we could take some of these things away and put the buttermilk up and stuff for me, honey. I would appreciate it. I know, work, 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 but you at least get fed after this, so. And that was the herbed buttermilk dressing part of the evening. There you go. And I am now going to put that aside. And the next thing we're going to do is make the creamy chicken casserole, which is one that you can do on your stovetop in a frying pan. I'm making a lot, and I'm going to give you a running total. The onion is about $1, and the peas are, I don't know, maybe 75 cents, because the whole, that's not even that. We're going to say 50 cents because it's a portion of a 2-pound package that costs about $2. And so we're up at about $1.50. I could have gotten chicken breast for $1.99, but we ran into financial difficulties of I don't make much, and we didn't have the money to buy that chicken that was on sale. So I'm using the chicken that I already have, which is about $3.29 a pound instead of being $1.99 a pound, which is a great sale. This is going to use about 2 pounds, so this is going to be an additional $6.60, pardon me, for the chicken. And $6.60. No, not $6.66. If anything, $6.68. But so we've got that and $1.50, and then we're going to put in 2 pounds of pasta, which are 98 cents a pound. And then it is just a matter of adding in $1.32 of chicken broth and some herbs, which are probably, again, about 50 cents, and some flour, even less than that, probably 10 or 20 cents worth of flour, and then a cup of milk to finish it. And that is not a heck of a lot of money. Tater tot casserole? Well, it depends on what exactly you're doing with the tater tot casserole. So it varies. These are boneless, skinless chicken thighs, which I actually prefer over breast meat because the breast meat can very easily be dry and just doesn't have as much flavor as chicken thighs do. The dark meat has a higher fat content, yes, so if you want to really trim the fat, you can use chicken breast tenderloins, or you can use chicken breasts themselves, and feel free to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. It has a little less flavor, but it's not that much less. I just really prefer the dark meat, both for moisture and flavor. I am going to add in about 2 teaspoons. It's about 1.5 ounces actually, of canola oil. And I choose an oil like canola not only because it has a high burn point, but it also has a almost no flavor in and of itself, which is something that I really appreciate. I want the food to taste like what I want it to taste like, and not just taste like the oil. And olive oils and corn oil, which was my grandmother's favorite, Corn oil tastes like corn, and olive oil has a very strong olive oil taste. But oils like canola and vegetable oil really don't have much of a flavor on their own. Now, if I had been planning better ahead, I would have had this chicken thawed, but I didn't. So I've got frozen chicken, so it's going to add to the cooking time, and that's fine. If you were starting with unfrozen chicken, your cooking time on the chicken would only be about 10 minutes. So, and you can multitask during that 10 minutes by just having your pasta on, and from a boil when you put the chicken in. And about the time your chicken's done, your pasta, which in this case is rigatoni, you can use anything from spaghetti to, you can use spaghetti or, farfalle, which is bow tie pasta, or you could use the rotini pasta, which is the corkscrew. Any kind of pasta that you have on hand will work just fine. And that's a really big chicken thigh. I'm going to keep it a little smaller than that. So, and I'm going to toss this piece in as my last, and that is about 2 pounds of chicken there. And I'm going to combine our chicken bags, because I've been taking from 2 different bags, so I would get pieces that were similar in size. And now I can use one of these for a garbage bag. Sesame oil works very well, especially if you're doing Asian cooking, because sesame oil is used in Asian cooking a lot. They use it kind of sparingly, though, because it is a very, very strong oil. Exactly. It's very strong. And actually, now sesame oil has been added to the common common allergens list with tree nuts and soy and dairy and glutens that they have to warn everybody about, because they have discovered, I don't know why it's a new discovery, but apparently it's a new discovery that people are coming up with really strong allergies against sesame seeds now. Okay, now while this is getting started, I'm going to start to season it. I'm going to use a little bit of salt on this. And because these are frozen, they're actually frozen with a little bit of brine on them. So they're already a little salty. And I don't want to oversalt them. That's just never pleasant. And I am going to add, and so that was probably a 1/4 teaspoon of sodium. The recipe, I would say, calls for a full teaspoon. I am going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of rosemary to it. And that way then, while this is cooking, it can pick up the flavors of these herbs and cook it right into the meat. So that is the rosemary. Now I'm going to sprinkle the sage over it, and this is going to have about a teaspoon of sage in this recipe too, and I am just kind of freehand sprinkling it because, like I said before, I really like sage. And my husband is quite tolerant of my liking for sage. It adds a really good flavor to things like chicken. And I am also going to add parsley to it, and I'm going to add about a tablespoon of parsley. Again, parsley is high in iron, and it has a really nice flavor it brings out in a lot of different kinds of dishes. So I am making what my cousin, whom I cooked with for years and semi-taught to cook, she learned all of the baking from Grandma. I learned the regular food cooking. Where did that fork go? There it is. She calls it green meat, and they always did because I flavor my chicken this way. I put these same seasonings on my steak when I was eating steak, and I even, to some limitation, will put it on fish depending on the kind of fish. This is a recipe. People have a problem mostly with cilantro, which some people say is almost indistinguishable from flat leaf parsley. But there is actually a genetic factor that some people taste cilantro as soap. And unfortunately, I am one of those people. Not surprising with all of my intolerances and allergies. But yeah, I taste cilantro as soap, so any salsas or anything like that, or other foods that people pepper with cilantro, taste soapy to me, like they didn't rinse out their dishes. So while this is cooking, I'm going to start cutting up the other vegetables. I've got peas here, which are going to go in. I have got an onion. I've got celery that's going to go into this, and there will also be some of these lovely roasted red bell pepper slices. And I could have just put in the regular bell pepper, a red bell pepper, or I could have used the canned version of it, which is a pimento, and that's what they call them. But these are fire roasted red bell peppers, so they have a little extra flavor to them. And this is $2.12 for this whole jar. This is a 12-ounce jar, and it's the $1.78 for a 4-ounce jar of pimentos because they're cut finer. That seems to be the only difference I can figure out. And the jars are really cute little things like this big. So you get the equivalent of 3 for just a few more cents. And these will last in the refrigerator pretty much indefinitely. This has roasted red bell peppers, water, salt, and citric acid, and calcium chloride for a color preservative. That's it. And they last really well. And my husband missed a bet because he didn't open it for me, so he couldn't come in here with his usual trick and just sit here and make sounds like that with the lid popping up and down on the little safety seal. So I am going to start dicing the red onion I have here. This is not a sweet onion. It is a regular red onion. It adds pretty color to the recipe. And as usual, I start by cutting off the growth end. This is where the onion stalk comes out. And I leave the root end on because it holds the layers together. And this also gives me a very good base to start cutting it in, and I take and keeping my hand out of the way on the top of the blade, it isn't the sharp part, I put pressure on it and kind of rock back and forth to get it to cut through. So now it's cut in half. Isn't that pretty? Come on, the colors of this, they're pretty. It also makes it easier to peel the outside. And then when I cut this up, that root end holds the layers of the onion together so they don't end up scattering all over my cutting board. It's a kind of a convenience thing. I used to cut them off at both ends, and then I'd end up chasing onion bits all over my cutting board, and just then I was watching the Food Network, and one of the chefs was saying, "Do it this way." I thought, huh. So I started doing it that way, and I think it's a little easier. Now, cooking this chicken from frozen is probably going to take 20 minutes to get it cooked all the way through, and then I will cut it up into casserole-sized pieces of a dice. But in the meanwhile, I am going to take, and I'm going to put a smaller dice on this than I sometimes do. This is going to cook to an al dente stage. It's not going to be really, really soft. It will just have gotten to the point where the onion is clear, translucent, and that means I still have the texture of the vegetable, but the flavor has softened, and it's just a nice stage. Some people, if you like your onions more done, you could put your onions in right now and cook them the whole time, and they would be a very soft onion that's just a little sweet and a little buttery in texture. Like garlic, if you bake this or cook it all the way through, it becomes very almost creamy in texture and will dissolve and actually will eventually completely cook away in a dish until you really can't find it. Then I do not use really fast knife skills, but I wasn't taught that way. I was always taught to cut carefully so that I didn't cut myself. No missing fingers, not yet, and trying to keep it that way. And for those of you who are bothered by the onion fumes, and most people are, honestly, unless you do a lot of onion cutting, your best option is to have a very well ventilated kitchen. Use your oven vent, have your windows open, and if it still really bothers you, you can get swimming goggles. They even have in some cooking places, they have onion goggles, which kind of look like glasses, but they have a seal that goes all around the eye socket, so there's no way the fumes can get in there. This is called a board scraper. It is made for picking up vegetables like this. It will cut vegetables. It cuts dough. It has a sharp edge, and it has, let's see if you can see it. Waiting for my display to catch up for me. Which is funny. You would think that I would have a good, there you can see it. It has a measuring edge on it that is the sharp edge, and that will make it so that you can, if you're trying to cut something like a cinnamon roll out of dough, you have a precise measurement that you can measure out and mark on your dough. So that is literally what it is for. I use this for cutting my pizza dough into portion sizes before I roll it up to let it rest. And I obviously use it for this because it is a lot easier to do it this way than it is to pick it up with my hands and try to get it all into the bowl or cooking vessel. Let's get this top into my garbage too. Yeah, I've had a lot of. I was in engineering and I did a lot of 10 to 12-hour days of nonstop typing on a computer and using a mouse. So I've done a lot of carpal tunnels type nerve damage to my hands. So my grip is not as precise as it once was, and I would really rather be careful and not cut myself. So somehow the idea of flooding the area with blood just doesn't appeal. It rarely adds anything to your cooking, and I highly recommend you don't cut yourself, especially if you're cutting onions, because boy, does that onion juice hurt in a cut. Which also applies if you have paper cuts on your hand. Yowza. So I am going to put an entire onion in here because we're fond of onions. If you like onion a little less, you can definitely only add half an onion. If you want an even milder flavor, use a sweet onion, which already starts out at the flavor profile of an onion that has been fried on a flat top or in a frying pan. And started the caramelization process, even though it doesn't really complete it until you are looking at really browned onions like you would use for French onion soup, which I also have a recipe for, and maybe someday I'll show you the fast version of it, because the slow version involves making beef broth from beef bones that you oil and season and roast first of all in the oven, and then combine with water and herbs and vegetables in a large stock pot, and along with some wine, and you boil it for 7 or 8 hours. I am going to turn these little devils over now. And no, I'm not going to season the second side too. There's still seasoning in the pan. Inksy! Hey Izzy, how you doing? Welcome in. I am making a creamy chicken skillet casserole tonight that is fairly economical. I have not done the maths yet on exactly how much it's going to cost per portion. It's going to make another 10 to 12 portions the way my recipe is written, because Andrew and I like to freeze leftovers and have food for several days without having to cook more. My last skillet recipe I did on my last stream was $11 in total for 12 servings. It turned out to actually cook. I'd been estimating 10 to 12 depending on portion size. And it was 92 cents a serving. And it had vegetables and beef and noodles and a nice homemade gravy in it. And you really can't beat 92 cents a serving. You can't even get a McDonald's cheeseburger for 92 cents anymore. Yeah, I've actually had a lot of people ask me about the cheap recipes. Could I make cheap recipes for them instead of things involving salmon and, luxury things like I made some deviled eggs, where I made standard deviled eggs, bacon deviled eggs, salmon and dill, and also what I call a sushi deviled egg, which had caviar on it, and it was lumpfish caviar, but it was still caviar. And that gets pricey. Smoked salmon alone is pricey. So, and now I am going to get out some celery. I probably should have done this before stream, but in case I need to have any of it washed. I think I already stripped away the outer ones. Yeah, these are pretty nice and clean. They don't have any traces of dirt I see in it. And I am going to be adding on to the vegetable quota here by serving this with a salad with fresh herbed buttermilk dressing that I made in the first part of the stream. So this is going to be cheap, and it's also going to be pretty healthy. You need a fancy version? Oh, the fancy version is easy to rack up there. Use more luxury cuts of chicken, you add more luxury vegetables, and in this case, if you don't like peas, I used peas because we had them. You can put corn in here. It blends quite well. You can put in broccoli. You can put in cauliflower. You can put in broccoli and cauliflower. Brussels sprouts goes well in this if you like Brussels sprouts. My husband hates them, so he never gets Brussels sprouts, and he's happy that way. I like them, but I only put them in things that he's not going to eat, and he mostly tries, not to gag while I am cooking it because he can't stand the smell of it. And I understand that because I can't stand the smell of cooking parsnips, or as they call them in England, Swedes. Just makes me want to gag. Hey, Weevil! How you doing there? Weevil is another streamer. Let's give Weevil and so is Inksy. Let's get both of them a nice shout out. Inksy is joining us from New Zealand, and she is a very nice person who does game streaming. And actually, everybody in here does game streaming except me. So, for those of you who haven't heard, Andrew Mantis, my husband, Stream Tech, and I'll call him a sous chef to be nice. He is the one who sets up my streams, clears them away, does my fetching and carrying for me, and makes sure that my stream comes through to you guys in the best possible condition, posts them afterwards, does my video editing. He's pretty much an all-around great guy. He has not only started streaming again, but he is also an affiliate now, and he's an awesome person. Yes, you did play Stardew, and as I recall, I love Stardew, is the things you said about it. I'm trying not to hold that against you. Yeah, you don't. Kate is the wife of a friend of mine, and she is a home cook that is apparently, from what he says, darn good at it. So she's watching my streams and learning some new recipes, and I guess just enjoying hanging out and getting whatever tips and tricks I can pass on. So, and I think I've got about, I don't know, 20 years cooking, 15, something like that. So I've got, I think this was 4 stalks of celery, and this was celery hearts. Didn't add that in. Like I said, I will post how much this whole thing cost. I don't think we're looking over $12 for the entirety of just the casserole, so none of these vegetables are expensive. The chicken itself is pretty cheap. Not as cheap as it used to be. It used to be the cheapest meat you could get in the world. You can make it even cheaper by shopping sales. We have a sale on right now for chicken breasts, boneless, skinless chicken breasts that are fresh, that are $1.99 a pound, and that's really hard to beat that price. You can beat it if you want to, and I have in the past when I was really tight on money and living on my own. I would use chicken hearts, and you could get about a pound for about $1. You really can't beat that at all. And as far as the meat goes, it's pretty lean. It is an organ meat, so it has a slightly stronger flavor, but they're already basically pre-diced because chicken hearts are only about this big. And you're talking about this big. And when they cook, they get a little bit smaller, and I use them in stir fries and casseroles a lot. So I am going to check that these are not sticking, and they aren't. Well, that one's sticking a little bit. This is the... What? Pound? Talking $1.99 US a pound. A kilo is roughly 2.2 pounds. So, yeah, and chicken can be pretty expensive. I've been watching the prices go up. I was talking last stream about the fact that uh, the price of eggs used to be 99 cents a dozen. Not that many years back, like 5 or 6 years, and Andrew and I, when we were first married back in 2009, got uh, 5 dozen eggs for a little over $4. And right now, um, you get you get that same amount of um, you get that same amount of eggs for almost $14. And that it was like $8 a pound, or pardon me, $8 for the 5 dozen this time last year. Heck, it was that price this summer. So it's going up. Inflation has just been mad. This needs a little bit more oil in here. So I don't really want things to burn. I am adding in about another ½ ounce. The thicker pieces of meat are still very rare inside. The thinner pieces of meat I chose are more like a medium. This is going to be cooked all the way through. They have said that these days chicken is safe to eat at a medium temperature, but I don't trust that. I'm old and I don't eat poultry, anything other than cooked through, and I don't cook pork anything other than cooked all the way through, although I see people saying it is overcooked, even if it's really juicy, if the juices run clear and it's actually done. Not well done, just done. Izzy, do you not know I'm 55? I'm old. There's no hiding anymore. There is no hiding from it. 55, I am officially a senior citizen now. I'm going to cry in a corner here for a minute. And to jolly myself out of that, Andrew is laughing at me from another. Yeah, thank you, Izzy. I know most of the people I hang out with that are gaming streamers could be my children, and if that doesn't just make you want to puke. Because I don't really feel mentally any older than when I was in my 20s. I really don't, which should say something about my basic mental state. I am bringing Hedgepig out, a little pink pig here, to make me feel better. Pink pig! For old people. We really know our shit. So I am going to make sure this does not continue to overly brown at one end. I will be what they call deglazing the pan after this has cooked a bit more with broth. And I am going to now turn the temperature down and taking these out. Could I have some tongs, honey? I'm going to cut the chicken up and I need to get them out. Woo! Chicken just spat at me. I don't think it wants to be cut up. Thank you, sweetheart. And I am going to cut these up into those manageable bits now. And then Andrew can take the cutting board away because it's not safe to use it after you have not done chicken on it. Always keep track of your cooking safety, people. Do not use a board that has had undercooked meat on it, whether that be beef or chicken or pork. Especially not pork. Some of the diseases you can get from this are fairly horrific. You do not want to get the food poisoning salmonella, which you can get from chicken. That can be life-threatening. You do not want to get trichinosis, which is actually a parasite from pork. Again, that can be life-threatening because that little parasite can go into your brain. They can get rid of it now with a ivermectin pill, but it's sometimes really hard to know you're having it till you have these really horrific symptoms. And I'm not going to get into it, but it's bad, trust me. And I am just cutting this up into a dice and being smart for once and not trying to use burning fingers, rapidly burning fingers, to cut the meat up with. Hold it while I cut it, rather. Yeah, did I mention that Weevil is a I believe you're a line cook, chef, not sure which. Um, he's one of the TLD community. I believe he's a variety streamer, but he is actually a professional cook. And saute cook. Okay. Still the professional type over me, who is, I may have you in years of cooking, but at least by a couple. But I was not classically trained. My grandma was a home cook who had, she started helping her mother cook for her family when she was about 10, same age when she taught me. And she cooked every meal all her life, and it was basically classic American comfort food. She was a farm wife. She grew up in a actual railroad town. Her father and brothers they built the railroad between New York and Washington State. So she actually came out from the east in a covered wagon. So she has since passed on. Fortunately, I spent every summer from 10 to 18 cooking with her, writing down the recipes as she showed me them, because she never wrote down a single thing. That's kind of an old time cook thing. There's a lot of women that cook that way, especially in the older brackets. What am I in? I must be in cartilage. Oh, yes, I have an entire joint there. That's nasty to run into. So that fork will be no good. That is an entire ball joint. And this is part of the reason why you very carefully check your food, too. Make sure you don't serve these things accidentally to people. Okay, going to, now that I've used the fork, I'll just use the fork to hold it. And then the fork will have to go away as being contaminated. I'm going to take this chicken chunk with the bone in it and dispose of that as well. I've found little pieces of cartilage before, but I've never found the entire joint in it before. So I am going to start putting this back into the pan. It has more to cook. I don't think you can see it, but the big chicken pieces that I just cut up are still very pink inside. Thank you. And Andrew has cooked the noodles for me that I'm using. I'm using rigatoni, which is a big round noodle. Um, it soaks up juice really nicely in sauces, and so that's a very interesting choice for this. And it was just what we had in the house. These days, after about the middle of the month, we are, whatever it is that we have left is what we have to cook with for the rest of the month. So I try to plan at the beginning when we have money. Now, this piece of chicken is actually pretty much cooked all the way through. It was a smaller piece. Even from frozen, it only took about 20 minutes of cooking time. And this has nice browning on the outside of the chicken. The inside is nice and juicy. It will stay that way because it is a dark meat, and it's not really got that much cooking left to do before I make the sauce for this. And then that will be wrapped up. Like I said, if you had started with fresh chicken instead of frozen, this would have been cooked in about 8 to 10 minutes max. So it really shouldn't take more than about a half hour to cook this if you start from fresh chicken. And I have very nice sharp knives, thanks to my husband. He makes sure all of my cooking implements are nice and sharp. My sandwich cutter things, which amused the heck out of him when I had I'm going to call it a senior moment, although I've been having them my entire life, where I just couldn't think of the word of knife. I couldn't think of knife. He posted that in Facebook, by the way. He does all of my worst ones. This was the sandwich cutter thing, but he makes sure my sandwich cutter things are very sharp so that I have less of a chance of cutting myself, which seems counterintuitive, but it's true. You tend to cut yourself more in a kitchen with a dull knife because it slips and slides, and the sharp knife just cuts through. And for those of you that have been here often enough to notice, yes, the tablecloth that I've got here is a new one. It's black. It was just picked up today because my dog ate the other one. I don't know why, but at the last moment he decided to have himself a little tablecloth snack. So he chewed up bits of it, and yeah, that was not helpful at all. These are vinyl so that they're easily washed. Anything that splashes on them can just be wiped off. They don't need to be laundered. But over time, I guess he found it delicious. So, okay. So now I'm going to put that back in along with the vegetables. And then Andrew's getting hungry. I can tell because he keeps wandering in here to see if I'm done yet and to take this away, and he's eating noodles while he does it. And the noodles are just cooked in salted water per the package directions for al dente, because they are going to cook a little bit in this sauce as it's forming. And they are also, yeah, it has cartilage in it too. Okay. Um, when you reheat it in the microwave, it is going to cook it a little bit more. So you want to make sure that you leave it al dente, good enough to be eaten fresh, but still has some room and can be eaten reheated. So I'm going to turn this back up, and the temperature I'm cooking this on would be considered medium to medium high. It's about at 225. Now, if anybody wants a board scraper or any of the equipment that you see me use on stream, I have links for them in my Discord under stream equipment. So my board scraper's in there, my electric skillets in there, my pots and pans, and so on are in there. Any little gadgets and toys I use are linked in there. Okay, and this cutting board can now be taken away. And this is going to cook the onions and celery a bit, and then finish cooking the chicken so that it is ready to go. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm going to use some hand wash. Now, for those of you that wants to watch my old streams, you can find them in my YouTube channel, Cooking with Hedgepigs. You can find my recipes and my pictures of the food I've cooked on stream in my Discord, which is listed there. And if you want any of my merchandise for some reason, like this cute giggling hedge pig double-walled steel water bottle labeled with Cooking with Hedge Pig, it also has a very nice top to it that you can see here, like a regular steel thermos. This holds 18 ounces, and it keeps your water cold for about 12 hours. I've got mugs there that have Cooking with Hedge Pigs and Giggling Hedge Pigs and Pink Pig on it. I have t-shirts and sweatshirts and hoodies and even a throw blanket and stickers. And you can find those at www.cookingwithhedgepigs.com if you want to buy yourself some merchandise. And while I'm waiting for things to cook, I would also like to mention that we are accepting very gratefully and humbly donations or tips for cooking equipment upgrades. And that could be everything from a second camera so you can see my prep area without me having to constantly shuffle things around, to helping us continue stream by being able to buy food. So I'm not just saying we're making spaghetti again. And as I said, you can put different vegetables in this, different amounts of vegetables. If you don't like parsley and would rather put some cilantro in it, feel free to put the cilantro in it. Aren't as fond of sage as I am, leave it out. You want to add some thyme into this or some tarragon, that would also work quite well with this particular recipe. This is going to have a homemade gravy in it, in that I'm going to put some chicken broth in this and then add flour to it to make a gravy. And Once that gravy is starting to thicken up, I'm going to add some milk to it, which makes it a creamy gravy. So it has a lovely creamy profile to the chicken. It's the equivalent, basically, if you were going to make this and use cream of chicken soup, which I don't do because it has garlic in it. Don't use cream of mushroom soup because it has garlic. Everything has garlic in it if it's pre-made, basically. So I have to make it all. It is confirmed I am a vampire. Allergic to garlic, need blood transfusions. Yeah. We have pictures to prove that one. So I'm going to let this cook a little bit more. And then I'm going to add the broth to it. And the important thing to remember when you're adding the flour to the broth, if you're going to do what I'm doing here, and instead of taking your broth and adding the flour to it and whisking it in a bowl together and then putting it in all together, if you're going to take a shortcut as I do and just sort of sprinkle the flour over the top, you need to mix it in right away while the chicken broth is still heating up and is still cool, or you're going to end up with dumplings and unintentional dumplings. So that's completely different. And I have managed to find a chicken broth that does not have garlic in it, that is store-bought, although it is apparently Hedgepig proof. There we go. And this is 32 ounces of chicken broth. And this will work as well as a wine to deglaze the pan. And what that means is that it will let you scrape up all the browned bits and the browning on the base of the pan. That happens even if you have nonstick. And all that flavor is not lost then. It is incorporated into your dish, and the browning tastes good. It adds depth of flavor, and it's much better with it than without it. Let me put it that way. So the first thing I'm going to do is rub this around. And this is my silicone spatula. And I can feel where the browning is on the base of this. And I can feel also that as I do this, it's going away. And it's already gone up there where it had the least amount of oil, so it had more amount of browning on the pan. And I'm just going to make sure that I get all that up before I add the flour. And I haven't lowered the heat on this yet. And this is steaming, but not actually simmering. You don't want this to boil. And I'm going to add 3/4 cup of flour to it so that the gravy is a nice thickened gravy. And this is a 1 cup measure here, and it's about 3/4 of the way full. And I'm just going to sprinkle it, like you can see here, over the top of the dish. And like I said, while it's cooking, and if you do it quickly, you do not get the flour to stick to anything, and it will mix in with the broth without making lumps. You do have to be kind of quick, though. Don't answer the phone if it rings while you're doing this. Let somebody else pick it up or let it go to your answering machine. Excuse me, I need to cough. Okay. And as you can see, that's mixed in now. It's the gravy that is forming. It is white right now. The broth is no longer clear, and that is because the flour is mixed in with it, and it will clarify a bit. It will turn to a darker brown before I add or I should say darker beige, as the flour cooks. And it only takes about 4 to 5 minutes at a simmer for the flour taste to cook out of your gravy. And it will start to thicken actually before the flavor is already completely gone. At this point, I am going to add in. Now, if you had been using fresh red bell pepper in this, and I choose red because it is the mildest of the bell peppers, and what some people don't know is that there is only one kind of bell pepper. They start out at green and they have the strongest, most assertive flavor. Then they slowly turn yellow. And then after that, they get milder in flavor and a little sweeter. And then you go to a orange bell pepper. It turns orange. And it, at that point, is more mild. It is sweeter. And you go then into the red bell pepper as it ripens. And that is the sweetest and the mildest. And I find the red bell pepper adds a lot of niceness to a dish that the green bell pepper is just too assertive for. So I am going to add approximately 4 ounces of this into it. And some of the juice. It's just, like I said, some citric acid and salt and water. And that's a nice flavor to it as well. The gravy, as you can see, is already thickening up quite a bit. At this point, I'm going to turn the temperature down to 200 so it won't encourage it to burn. This adds a nice pretty color to it. I am also going to, at this point, add a cup of peas, and these are just frozen sweet peas. And they've been sitting out here this time, so they're already partially thawed. I don't boil them because I like them to maintain their sweet, fresh pea flavor. And if you boil the living tar out of them, that goes away and you might as well be using canned peas. The nice part of fresh peas or frozen peas is that you still have that sweet profile and the pop of the vegetable as you bite into it. So it adds texture too. And this makes it a pretty dish as well. And this is almost done. I am actually, hydrate. Okay, I am going to hydrate. Here we go. Thank you for the hydrate. I am going to add up to a cup of water to this to thin out the broth, the gravy that's forming. And that looks closer to half a cup actually. And mix that in. Because I don't want it to get so gluey it doesn't really spread and makes it hard for the milk to actually mix in with this. And this is just going at a simmer right now. I think you can see, nope, you can't see the steam. And the simmer is kind of imperceptible to you too. But the onions are cooking and the celery that's in here is cooking. It's still going to have nice texture to your teeth. It's going to also be al dente to crisp. And that's why I cut the onion smaller than I normally do, so they're more of an al dente versus the celery is going to have a nice crunch to it like you would get in a nice stir fry. So you're not looking for a limp, soggy vegetable here. You're looking for a little bit of crispness to the teeth. And let me see here. I'm going to taste the broth, the gravy, and see whether or not the flour taste is cooked out, and if it needs more salt or anything else. It's going to need salt with the pasta being added to it, but I would prefer to actually salt individual portions. The flour taste is gone already, so I am going to add the just about 10 ounces of milk here, and that's just a 2% milk. Like I said, there is no way I'm going to make this a vegan recipe day. You could make this with gluten-free flour. You could make it with gluten-free pastas or a vegetable pasta like a chickpea flour pasta. You could use oat milk, unflavored oat milk with this, and make it so it is dairy-free. But the dressing that I made, there's no way to make that dairy-free. Hey, Connor Carbonara. Hello, Allie. Nice to see you in. Lovely to see you both. And yeah, 2% milk is the fat content. It's a medium. You could use skim milk if you like that, 1%. You could use whole milk. And this needs to cook the milk a little bit, and then we're going to add it to our 7-quart stock pot that I have, because I've got 2 pounds of pasta in it already. It's rigatoni. How's the snow? It's still snowing. Great. It's been snowing for about 3.5 hours now. So our chance of snow is a definite, and it is sticking, and it is going to drop down to 24 degrees tonight here, which is, I think it's something like -6 to 8 degrees Celsius. I don't have a good conversion in my head for that. We are going to put this on top of the pasta, and then I am going to have Andrew bring me back the salad dressing that has been chilling in the refrigerator. This recipe is going to go up on my Discord after stream, and this is 2 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken thighs that were sautéed and cooked through. It is a cup of peas. It is 4 ounces. That is Dremaine, our little pet dragon that we have, stuffed dragon. And it has a whole onion in it. You can take this away too. Has a whole onion in it. It has 4 stalks of celery that are diced. It has rosemary and sage and parsley, some salt in it. It has the fire roasted red bell pepper in it. It has 32 ounces of chicken broth, 3/4 of a cup of flour to make the gravy, and 10 ounces of milk to make it a creamy gravy. And then I've got 2 pounds of rigatoni pasta. You could make it with spaghetti, and I actually do that in the past. I was going to make it with rotini, which is the corkscrew pasta. It works with any kind of pasta you have, basically. It really doesn't matter. And if you want to half this recipe, it's even cheaper. If you don't want to have about 12 servings, which is what we're going for here, my noodle skillet, beef noodle skillet casserole I did last week, last Friday as a matter of fact, cost $11 to make, and it made 12 servings, so it was 92 cents a serving for half an hour of cooking. That's pretty darn good. I am going to turn the heat off now, and going to have Andrew bring out some scoops so that we can transfer Well, we could probably use this cup actually. Oh, you did. Okay. Well, why don't you scoot yourself out here? And this is a herbed buttermilk dressing that I made earlier tonight. Really simple recipe. It is, bring the pasta over here, honey. And we will start scooping the gravy into it. And Andrew's gotten really good at this. I am going to unplug this from here for when we inevitably get to the point where we just Andrew just picks it up and pours it in, what's remaining. Very hot, that plug, by the way, until it's had a chance to cool down. This is my homemade buttermilk dressing, and it has a half a cup of mayonnaise in it. It has a cup of sour cream. It has a cup of buttermilk, and that's full fat buttermilk. They have low fat too. I have never found a vegan buttermilk, so I don't know how to make this vegan for people. It has 2 teaspoons of lemon juice in it. It has salt and pepper. It has parsley and sage and rosemary in it. So it's a very nice herby dressing, which is only going to get more herby. And for that amount, I will also include the prices. It made 24 ounces of dressing, so it's a nice big bottle. That get it all? Yeah. Okay. And he will now take all of that away and begin the mixing process. And I am going to make the salad that will go with this, for me at least. And it's not going to be fancy. It's just a classic iceberg salad with iceberg and red cabbage and carrot shredded into it. Oh, yeah. You can go ahead and scoop some into here. Try to get bits of everything. You could add mushrooms to this. I normally would. We don't have mushrooms right now, so I'm not gonna. And I'm going to make this would be a complete, pretty well balanced meal if you added a salad to it. You could add cheese to your salad. You could add tomatoes, cucumbers, however fancy you want it to be. I just want it to be lettuce tonight. So I've got probably a cup and a bit of salad here. And it's just like I said, it's an iceberg salad. That looks good. Try to stick a red thing on top of it before you take pictures and put a fork in it. One of the bell peppers on top. And I'm going to take my dressing. That's good. And I'm going to give it a little bit of a shake to mix it up. And like I said, this does get thicker in the refrigerator. And if you want it to be thinner, just add more buttermilk to it, like an ounce or so. And I'm going to pour this over my salad. Make it look all pretty. And then I am going to add a little fresh ground pepper on top. And sprinkle a little extra parsley on top to make it extra pretty. And Andrew will bring me a fork so I can taste it all for you. Now, I already had tasted this earlier, and I could taste the tang of the sour cream and buttermilk in it. and it was very creamy and smooth. And it is, you could taste the herbs already quite present at the time, but the herbal flavor will combine through it and strengthen as it ages. In the refrigerator, because it has no preservatives in it, it will only last between 4 to 6 days. But here's my dressing on my salad. You'll get pictures of it. Mm. Salad is lovely and crunchy, of course. Really doesn't have much to say for itself. Iceberg is not the most flavorful lettuce, but it is the cheapest. You could make it with mixed wild greens. You could make it with spring greens mix. You could use romaine in it. It is still very creamy. It is still loose enough to spread easily, but the herbal flavor has intensified, and it makes it a very pleasant bite. And this would work well as a sauce to put on or dip your chicken nuggets in, or your pizza if you're of that persuasion. And it's very tasty. And I'm hoping Andrew will also take a picture of the salad and try a bite for people to give you the carnivore's thoughts on the matter. Okay, here is the salad to take away. And I just lost Pink Pig for the evening. She has rolled underneath the table. When we take the table apart, or Andrew does, she will be recovered. Did you take a bite? I already did. I wanted to have your taste of it. Anyway, it is not it doesn't have the garlic taste that a ranch dressing has, because it doesn't have garlic in it. So it is a really nice, smooth, creamy, tangy dressing on your salad. And now I'm going to have a taste of the casserole. Andrew says, nom nom. That's not exactly a good description. Here is a close-up of the casserole, and it has kind of a light gravy over it. That's a creamy gravy. And I am going to get myself a pepper and a piece of pasta too, and take a bite. Mm. The chicken is moist. You can taste the seasoning of the herbs in it. You can taste the parsley and rosemary, and especially the sage. The gravy that's on it is chickeny. It's a very light one. It's not really thick like it would be if you used a canned cream of chicken soup. The pasta is al dente. You can taste the onion, and you can especially taste those fire roasted peppers. The chicken is tender and moist to the bite. It's a really lovely casserole. And combined with my salad here, it's going to make a really good dinner. He just eats, and his comments are usually taste good, edible, and a couple times delicious. I am now going to thank the people who have followed me. Thank you again for the Bits Flightless Rain. Thank you, In, a Lily Bits, who has followed me. Thank you for the raid, Dragon Named Fox, and thank you, In, for my new followers of Avatar Fan Airbender and Clabarban, who is a mod for my friend the only deaf guy who is a British chef working in his cafe in England. A small girl, Laura, also from there. I've got Bullfinger and several other people that I'm not going to name. They'll be listed on my closing. I am going to see who else is streaming to see who we can raid out to. And, oh, so many people. Let's see if we have... I am going to raid out to... I don't see any chefs doing cooking right now that are not the 24-hour stream stuff where they just play cooking shows. Why don't we raid... Let's raid 2 feet at a time. She is a long dark streamer and she's a really lovely person. So we're going to raid out to her, and I'm going to say thank you so much for coming to my stream. We will have recipes and pictures up in my Discord after stream. And please stick around for the raid, and thank you so much for coming.